Welcome to the Reviews Without Remorse podcast with Joe and Dave. Be warned, the discussions in this podcast may contain detailed spoilers. For spoiler-free reviews, be sure to check out our show on YouTube. Enter at your own risk and enjoy the show.
Are you saying that Reviews Without Remorse would be our pets? No, we would be theirs. Welcome to Reviews Without Remorse, episode number 120. In this episode, our favorite 80s action heroes, Arnold Schwarzenegger and Sylvester Stallone, are back for one last round with Terminator, Dark Fate, and Rambo, Last Blood. The trailers are out, we'll discuss, and then, long live the king. David and I will discuss Godzilla, King of Monsters. And what's going on, partner?
How's it going, my man? That's, how was your trip?
My trip was spectacular. Absolutely spectacular. And thank you for covering last week.
Oh, it was not much of a problem. But ladies and gentlemen, if you want to find out more about Joe's trip, he'll be putting up some stuff over at Being James Bond. Check it out.
Yes, it was the 50th anniversary of On Her Majesty's Secret Service, and they pulled out all the stops, and it was a big celebration. For me, it was a 10-day-long excursion, and it was absolutely spectacular. So check out Being James Bond for lots and lots of video, audio, etc.
But in the meantime, why don't we get started on this show?
Let's do it.
2 days ago, I had this nice, simple life. And now it's a nightmare.
If travel is searching and home has been found, I'm not stopping.
So, Tim Miller didn't come back for Deadpool 2, and instead is directing Terminator Dark Fate. So, on a positive note, the action, I feel like, is going to be good. I gotta be honest with you, I kind of feel not a lot about this trailer. I kind of feel a little like, I hate to say it, but been there, done that?
Yeah, I'm with you. I really did not see anything unusual. The only thing unusual was the fact that it was an all-female cast, more or less, except for the two Terminators. The two bad guys are men, the heroes are all women, unless I'm missing something.
It's hard. That's hard to determine because they haven't really given us a hell of a lot so far. But yeah, it kind of feels like that, doesn't it?
True. Yeah, but yeah, I agree. And the tone was weird. I kind of felt like, you know, when the end logo shows up and there's a song playing out in the background. Mm-hmm. Kind of almost like a westerny kind of song. Like you would have heard in Logan trailers.
Yeah, it's actually kind of a more, you know, westerny sounding version of a like a 90s song called The Hunter. Mm-hmm. I'm the hunter. I don't remember.
Yeah,
the artist,
right.
Yeah.
I remember I watched that and I'm like, boy, that's a far cry from the dun 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 kinds of trailers we used to get. So I really have no idea what to make of this. Then they knock on the door and there's old Arnold Schwarzenegger and I'm like, I really don't know what to make of this. I have no clue what they're going for with this. I will say this: I liked when Sarah Connor showed up, and it made me kind of wish that they did more movies with her at the time when they had the chance. So yeah, now we're all the old geezers. We're gonna go out again and try another one, and we will see, I guess.
I'm not 100% sure how I feel about it. I mean, yes, it was nice to see Sarah Connor show up again. I thought that was badass. I thought it was great. I feel like the action's going to be cool, but I kind of feel like there's this element of over-the-topness that's taking away a little bit of the relatively groundedness of the original Terminators. I'm just not feeling it right now. I'll see it. I'm sure I'll see it. And also, I love how they're like plastering James Cameron's name all over the damn place. And it's like, at best, he's a producer on this. It's not even like it's not even like it's his screenplay.
Right. Yeah. I mean, Yeah, I mean, he's not really involved with this as far as I can tell, so I don't know what that's all about. I mean, well, I know what it's about, but I mean, come on, guys.
Yeah, it's like, oh my goodness, James Cameron's back. It's like, dude, James Cameron hasn't done dick in
Yeah.
almost 10 years.
Yeah.
10 years is his last movie.
Yeah. And by the way, you keep saying the action looks good. I'm not really that convinced because honestly, when I saw, I mean, it opens up with the three in the trailer, the truck, the pickup truck, and then the one does like this kind of ninja cartwheel into the back to shoot the guy who's driving the truck behind them. And I'm saying, wow, that looks like Terminator 2. And you know what? I thought it was better in Terminator 2. I didn't think this was particularly well done. And honestly, in the time of CGI and, all the special effects they can do, I kind of feel like this is so far looking very underwhelming. I feel like it was done 10 times better in Terminator 2 way back when.
I'll grant you that. I was trying to find something, right? And I kind of feel like since it's Tim Miller, and he did the action so well in the first Deadpool that I was kind of hoping maybe that will also be the same. But hey, there it is.
Like I said, this is still the first teaser trailer, so you never know.
I've lived in a world of death. I've watched people I've loved die. Some fast with a bullet. Some not enough left to bury.
Yeah, I'm gonna take my horse to the old town road. I'm gonna ride till I can't no more.
All these years I've kept my secrets. But the time has come to face my past.
Conversely, Rambo Last Blood.
Yeah. Dave's looking at me because he knows I'm the Rambo guy. I was a big Rambo fan. So
absolutely.
I'm all over this one. I kind of couldn't wait. I mean, again, all they have to do is announce it, and I'm all over it. But hard to say where this is headed. I will say that the trailer reminded me of the first trailer of the last Rambo. Now, when I saw the Rambo 4, which again came out, probably like 10 years ago now, but still way long after the last Rambo 3.
Right.
They came out with this trailer that honestly looked like a snuff film. Like it was just over the top, kind of violent, gory stuff. This, I wouldn't say this looked super duper gory, but it did have that kind of grounded, and it's all about the violence kind of a thing.
Right.
So I don't know. It's interesting. I mean, I thought the last one was a lot better than I thought it would be. It was not Rocky Balboa level. I mean, again, that's sort of, that's the bar now as far as I'm concerned. Like he did Rocky Balboa and that was spectacular. He decided to do Rambo 4. And it was solid. It was solid, but boy, did it stink of being kind of under budget and sort of missing a whole third act. So I'm kind of mixed on this one. I mean, I'll see it. And oh, by the way, I want to say this: my costume commanderness goes beyond actual costume to actual things like, as an example, Lethal Weapon 4 when Mel Gibson shows up with short hair. No. Now, I'm sure you can make an argument about what the character would do, yada, 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 whatever. No, you just don't do that. And seeing Rambo with short hair,
doesn't feel right, does it?
It doesn't. And I know, look, the guy's like 70 something. I know to have like to think he would have like a thick head of long hair. I know, and I know it might not look right or whatever, but I don't know. Seeing Rambo with short hair kind of looks really weird to me. So I'm very trepidatious about this. How about you? Did you feel any differently?
So, I liked how it looked visually, and I liked how Stallone seems to be back into the character's like mindset. But other than that, I was kind of just like, I'm gonna see it, and I'm sure it'll be fine. I'm sure that they're just not trying to give away a lot of what's going on. Because, it's like, he's out for revenge. Well, revenge for what? What,
Right. They don't give us anything in this one. And
exactly. There's a lot of talk about things like that haven't happened. You know, we're weird like this, you and I, because on the one hand we're like, we don't want trailers that spoil too much, and then when they like just give enough of a tease, it's like, well, could you give us a little bit more? It's like, where is our happiness?
Right. There is no there's no happy medium. This one gives you a flavor for what it is, and I thought that was good.
I think that's fine.
But again, it's funny. I just said about Terminator 2, I said the music had this kind of Logan feel to it, and I kind of feel like this one did the exact same thing. And another thing that kind of is irking me specifically about Stallone trailers, I wish he would stop monologuing in these trailers. He tends to do that. Like, I don't know what that's about. And Rambo is a character that, again, is not supposed to be deep and eloquent. Not that this was, but I kind of feel like it should be someone else talking about him, not him doing the talking. So that kind of sets me wrong. You know what I'm saying?
Kind of like the way they would talk about John Wick type deal.
Yes, exactly. Right. I mean, even in the first First Blood movie, you had Troutman and Teasel talking about Rambo, about what he can do and yada, yada, yada. And Rambo doesn't have to talk at all. And that's how you build the character up. Like, I mean, if you're going to build a badass character, you prop him up. You don't have him talking about himself. It sort of detracts from the mystery of the character. And Rambo should not be a talker. So I really wish he would stop doing that. He did the same kind of routine last time when he did the dream sequence, which I think ended up in the trailer. What am I? This whole thing. And it kind of made for a badass little montage in the middle of the movie to show flashbacks of his old films. But yeah, I don't get that the character would do that. I come from a place of death, and I don't know. That doesn't work for me.
It's being directed by Adrian Grunberg. His only directing credit is the 2012 Get the Gringo with Mel Gibson. He's mostly a second unit director. He's the guy that, like, we need an action sequence, get an action director. He's an action director this is his first big flick.
Yeah, I will say this. I liked the Gringo movie, and I will say that the action in this looked pretty good. I thought that
for sure.
There was a lot that was happening with the explosions and the booby traps that looked very kinetic and had a lot of good energy, and it worked. That much I'll say. So maybe that's what they're really aiming for with this. So, okay, we'll see. Interesting that most of the action seemed to take place around his house. Odd. Again, they didn't give us much, and it's an early trailer, so like the other one, we'll have to wait it out and see what they do with it, but kind of, I got my fingers crossed that it'll work. I feel like I say that for every single trailer. But
now not necessarily. There are some trailers that just speak to you. And lately, you know what? I think it's because we're becoming a little bit cynical when it comes to the trailers. We've had so much bait and switch. We've had so much misrepresentation. We've had so much where it's not indicative of what the movie actually is. It's just trying to blah 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 blah. So maybe we're just more critical now.
That is very true. But again, I mean, a lot of times you do get a good sense of what you're in for, and I feel like I said, when they do these little teasers with just a little bit they've already shot, it really is hard to sort of glean from that what to expect. So, well, we've got Arnold Schwarzenegger and Sylvester Stallone, the two biggest action heroes of the 80s. So, needless to say, I'll be rooting for them, and I hope that these are decent movies.
What we are witnessing here is the return of Titans.
How many of these things are there?
17 and counting.
That's messed up.
Mothra, Rodan, Ghidorah.
Oh my. They're moving like a pack. They're hunting. They all respond directly to an alpha.
The cryptozoological agency Monarch faces off against a battery of god-sized monsters, including the mighty Godzilla, who collides with Mothra, Rodan, and his ultimate nemesis, the three-headed King Ghidorah. Written by Michael Dougherty and Zach Shields. Story by Max Borenstein. Michael Dougherty and Zach Shields, based on characters created by Tomoyuki Tanaka, Ishiro Honda, and Eiji Teshibara, directed by Michael Dougherty. Godzilla, King of the Monsters. Okay, it's finally here. So, I'm just going to come right out and say it. Whenever there were monsters on the screen, this was the best movie of the year. The minute it went to humans, I was dazed. I'm just going to say it. Straight up, right there.
Okay. Any more to add?
Oh no, that's just a tiny little summary. The general gist is, as we tend to like to do, we tend to open up with, our immediate feelings to give the audience an idea of whether we like it. I liked this movie. I really did like this movie. I had fun with this movie. I still feel like there's too much of a reliance on human characters. I mean, you're supposed to have a reliance on human characters, which is fine. That's something that's traditional in a Godzilla movie. But I have not made any type of connection with any of the human characters so far, save for Ken Watanabe's character, who barely had like 20 lines in the entire movie, and that's probably just the power of Ken Watanabe being Ken Watanabe. I just kind of felt really not a lot for the characters, the human element of the story. But the minute everything went over to Godzilla and Mothra and Rodan and King Ghidorah, oh my God!
Okay. Should I go?
Please.
Okay. Shitfest.
Whoa!
Couldn't stand it. I couldn't wait for this to be over.
Whoa!
And I have to tell you, I was a little excited because I had a hunch that you and I might have walked out with different feelings about this movie. But yeah, I honestly just couldn't stand it. I really just did not. And I was kind of rooting for it throughout the whole film. And I was kind of waiting for, I was rooting for it all the way through. And I kind of felt like it was really flat and really just not delivering. And I felt like, kind of like what you were saying, when it was the people, I was bored. When it was the monsters, it was great. I felt like throughout the whole movie, I'm saying, please show me what I want to see. Every time it felt like constantly the camera is pointing at something else that I don't care about. Like, how many times did I look down at this contraption that they were using, this invention to communicate or control the monsters? I'm like, why am I looking at this thing again? Why am I looking at more screens? Why am I looking at more people? And even the monster parts, I hate to say it. I mean, honestly, by the time the third act was rolling around, I said to myself, this movie better give me just a shitstorm of monsters punching each other in broad daylight so I can actually see them. And I really felt like it just didn't happen. And in the beginning, I was sort of admiring the fact that they seemed to be able to make the monsters look pretty good. The scale, I was waiting for them to sort of give us a good sense of scale. They kind of did that, and then I kind of felt like it kind of got lost in the muck, where, again, because it's this big, special effecty CGI clusterfuck, I just said I was like, ugh, like it was because it was all computer generated and CGI. The camera's always in the wrong place, which diminished the scale of what was happening. Now, the Godzilla that we saw about a year or 2 years ago, the Toho
Shin
Godzilla, thank you. That was great. They gave you a great sense of scale, and they were very smart about making it look like there's a guy standing on the ground holding the camera trying to get this thing in shot, right? Here, no, the sense of scale was kind of lost. And again, it was murky, ugly, constantly raining, constantly cloudy and gray, so I can't see anything. I honestly was getting to the point at the end where I was really kind of I was like, you know what? Can we wrap this up? I'm ready to go home and do the review and just be done with this movie. And honestly, again, how do you screw this up? How do you screw up a monster movie with Godzilla and every single Godzilla monster there ever was? But as far as I'm concerned, they found a way to goof it up. And by the way, there's a shit ton of product placement. just as a little cherry on top, which was annoying me from the get-go. From the first time they tapped the smart smoke alarm to shut it off, I'm like, all right, we're gonna get a shitstorm of product placement in this. So yeah, a lot of effort, a lot of CGI. And I'm sitting there saying to myself, like, this is sort of the grandfather maybe of destruction porn. We sort of complain about the destruction porn in our superhero films, how easy it is to knock down buildings. This genre pioneered that. It was born by a big monster stepping on buildings. So, okay, I get that, but here I am. It's almost like we're going to take all this special effects and CGI magic and we're going to just vomit it projectile right into your face. Like, I felt like I was just bombarded with this visual mess. And I think I've made my point, and I will take a breath and let you tell me where I'm wrong.
I'm going to call it right here, right now. This is Joe's 2019 Ready Player One.
That's actually, you know what? That's actually pretty fair analysis, a pretty fair comparison, actually. It does have a lot in common with that, frankly. Again, they're just shooting way too high with what they can do, and they're losing the sense of, at least some implied limitation. Again, the Shin Godzilla did this masterfully, where it looked like it was being shot by, by a camera that would be in a helicopter, or a camera with a guy on the ground holding it looking up. They masterfully got that sense of scale. And here, again, because they can just do whatever they please, they don't really have to bother with it. I will say that the monster designs were good. I mean, they already kind of went with this Godzilla design, which was kind of okay. And I thought, again, the Shin Godzilla was better. They managed to get the other ones very right, and the effects were good again, but just not what I would like to see. I wanted to see some clarity. You have big giant. At one point, I'm sitting here watching the monster fight. And I'm saying to myself, geez, am I really going to praise Michael Bay when I'm talking about this? Because at least his big giant robot fights are in the daylight where I could see what's happening.
Oh, you heard it here first. Michael Bay praise from Joe, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, good
Credibility
Lord.
out the window. No, you're not completely incorrect. I feel like this movie... This is going to be a polarizing movie, whether you're a fan of Godzilla or not. You are either going to accept the fact that this is the 21st century Americanized version of Godzilla, and that's okay as long as you get to see Godzilla fighting Ghidorah and all that other stuff. That's fine. And I fell into that line, to be perfectly honest with you. I didn't like the plot. I didn't like the way the plot was done. I had no problems with any of the actors. The actors were really trying their hardest with what they got, but it was very difficult for me to feel anything for any of it. Ken Watanabe, spoilers. Obviously we're in the spoiler section, but Ken Watanabe sacrifices himself to save Godzilla, and here I am earlier saying that, he was like my favorite character in this series so far. And yet, I have to look at IMDb to get that his name is Dr. Ishiro Shirasawa. They don't really say it all that much in the movie, number one.
Right.
The other thing is when it did happen, I was like, oh. I'm like, whereas Endgame, Tony Stark snaps his fingers and I'm freaking crying my damn eyes out. To a lesser extent, Terminator 2. Let's go with a better example. Terminator 2. Which is kind of funny since we had the Terminator movies earlier. This is the second movie of the Terminator series, very, very early in its days. Okay, not to mention the fact that in what I guess you could call the first example of subverting expectations. God, I hate that word, but it's all over the damn place. But moving on, in the first case of that, the Terminator, who was the bad guy in the first movie, who was terrifying, and who every time it showed up, you just got a little bit of a chill down your spine, is suddenly the good guy. And at the end, sacrifices himself to save the dark future. All right? I remember that little thumb of his going up as he's sinking into the damn molten steel, and I have tears coming down my eyes. hey, that's great character development. And Mr. Let Them Fight dies, and I feel nothing. That's a bad sign. The other one, the girl, you blink if you missed it, but the doctor, his little partner there, gets eaten by Ghidorah up in the Arctic place, and it literally is blink and you miss it, and that character's dead. You see, I love the confusion on your face. I love it. Oh my, you're proving my point.
I did not catch that at all.
Yeah, no. When Ghidorah is first released, everybody's, for whatever reason, every single person from Monarch in their giant helicarrier has gone to this place where Ghidorah is being held, Monster Zero, as it was known at the time. And when it gets out, it starts, going buckwheat. And at one point, the father character is running away, and he's got the girl. Now, the actress is played by the actress who was in that recent Guillermo del Toro movie, the fish sex movie.
Oh, The Sound of Water, Shape of Water.
The Shape of Water, yeah. Okay, she was in that. Sally Hawkins is the actress's name. She was also in the first Godzilla movie. She was like the girl that was always next to Ken Watanabe's character. She got eaten. And it literally was blink and you missed it.
I totally missed it.
Type situation. Okay? It's like back to the Predator, that the frickin' evil bad guy
right.
who was wearing like the Predator armor, and then next minute, pop, he's dead, gone, goodbye. Kind of like that. The movie
killed off faster than X-Force.
Yeah. X-Force was killed off in clever, fun ways.
Yeah. This is true.
This movie is so trying to give us characters to make us care about them in the way that the first movie tried to make us care about their characters. It's more interested in just throwing out these little tee-hee flashbacks. It's like, we've got an oxygen destroyer. And, when the guy said they have an oxygen destroyer, that's something directly from the first Godzilla movie. Liam and I are kind of looking at each other like, oh, like really excited and stuff like that. And then it kind of just fizzled out. It's like they knew the movies, they loved and respected the movies, and they tried their best to, do a version that was similar to that, but in a weird way, it overproduced itself. The static directors nowadays need to stop this shit. They need to stop thinking of a camera that is movable.
Right.
What the hell happened to static shots?
Yeah.
Has anybody not been paying attention to the John Wick series?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, again, right. It's not that the camera is fluid. I mean, it's not that it's moving, but again, it's just where a camera would not be, and you lose a sense of. I mean, and plus I could never get the geography of things. I felt like they were all over the world at any given moment, and I couldn't figure out where they were, how they were getting to where they were going. All of a sudden, like at one point, I don't even know. I couldn't even tell what they were in. I literally couldn't even tell what the hell they were in. They were in an airplane at one point, but then somehow they're kind of like. I literally couldn't get where they were half the time. Like then at one point they show up at Fenway Park. It's like, oh, that's where we should be, and then all of a sudden they're there, and then they show like 11 like sneaks out somewhere, and I'm watching this, and it's almost like she moved miles to get there. Then she breaks into the thing, she sets something off, and then before you know it, then she's on top of a building looking out, and I'm looking around going, that looks like a building, not a section of the stadium. Then she runs back inside and she's back in the stadium. I'm like, where the hell is everybody? I literally couldn't tell who was where and what. I mean, they were all over the world in seconds. 1 minute seriously, did I miss something? Like 1 minute they're at the South Pole, then they're all in Boston. I'm going, what is going on? Like this would take somebody a day in an airplane to get around like that.
Well, they have the helicarrier. That takes them everywhere.
That goes at the speed of light. I mean, it doesn't matter what they're in. It doesn't. I mean, they're all over the planet, and I'm just like, I don't know. I like I said, no sense of time, no sense of geography. It was just so hard to get your head around what's going on where. I mean, honestly, the plot was cockeyed. I mean, I felt like Like, here's the thing, and I'm sure you predicted this from a mile away. Once she starts spouting off all that hippie BS about, well, man was the dominant species for so long, and look what we've done. Pollution. And I'm like, oh, Jesus, here we go. So she decides, I mean, and I liked the moment where she pulled the trigger. Like, that was at least sort of a twist that I didn't see coming. I mean, and again, No, I didn't see that coming. When she pulled the trigger, I didn't get it. I mean, again, she had been abducted. Her and the daughter were abducted. The daughter is scared. The mother says, I'm scared. And then the mother grabs the thing and pulls the trigger, which means, so she's a bad guy, because now she literally has abducted her own daughter and terrified her own daughter, put her in harm's way. There are people getting machine gunned down around them. And she's just kind of shielding the daughter a little bit, saying, oh, don't worry about it, we're good. And then you find out she was in cahoots with the bad guys all the time. So, yeah, that surprised me. I'm not saying it's a good twist, because it didn't follow through, or the more it played out, you just kind of went, wait, what are we doing here? So I'm not saying it was good, but I did not see that coming because it's poorly written. I mean, again, there are times when movies subvert expectations. There are times when they subvert expectations because something's badly written. Like, I'm hearkening back to like mystery movies that you see, like lame ones, where the killer all along was like the elderly mother or the guy who has been around this entire time, who could not have possibly have done it. It's just so poorly written that it doesn't line up. But they were like, but you wouldn't have guessed it was him. So, yeah, it was a stupid twist, and I kind of thought it was lame. And then when she does the spiel about because of pollution and because man sucks, I'm like, all right. So then they kill, like, this is her theory. Her theory is that we've destroyed the Earth, and the Titans are here to clean everything up and get rid of us all. Now, again, this is a mother who lost her son to Godzilla, but somehow has become, I guess, brainwashed into believing that the Titans are here for a noble purpose to clear out the no good rotten people to save the Earth. So not only is she not upset about her son anymore, but she wants to sort of kill off more people. She thinks this was just the beginning of something good. So now I'm totally just lost on this person. Like, am I supposed to be sympathetic? Is she a villain now? So I didn't get what that was all about. But then they go on, they kill off Godzilla, and then of course, they're scratching their heads. Oh, you mean we killed off the one thing that was going to save us? So what do? They take a nuclear bomb and blow up Godzilla so he can absorb the radiation. Then you kind of go, oh yeah, Godzilla was created by nuclear radiation, and that's what he so there goes that theory about him being Mother Nature, who's going to wipe out all these mean old polluters to save the planet. Have I made my point that was stupid?
I have no idea what you're talking about, because it made about as much sense as everything else in this movie. Seriously, though, you're really 100% correct. The biggest problem with this movie is the plot. Instead of building a compelling enough plot, or instead of even making a sensible plot, something that made sense, they instead threw in some weird and, I don't know, environmental message, I guess. I'm not 100% sure what exactly was the point.
And not only do I not get, by the way, not only do I not, I literally by the end was confused. I was saying to myself, is this an environmental message, or is this a condemnation of the environmental message? Because basically, again, she turns out to be wrong. She turns out to be in cahoots with the bad guys. It becomes abundantly clear that she was wrong in everything she was saying. And then, yes, we give Godzilla the adrenaline shot of nuclear waste to wake him up to go take out the other monsters. So again, I was literally saying to myself, maybe I'm missing the point. Maybe this was intended to be a rebuttal to all that sort of hippie bullshit about environment and this sort of stuff.
I don't think it was, or at least I don't think it was. But either way, what does it matter? Because no matter which way it was trying to get across, whether it was pro-environmentalism or anti-environmentalism, it didn't tell the story very well at all. So
right.
There's whatever the end message is, if there was an end message, although I guess the real end message is environmental terrorists are the worst, because by the end of the movie, And the after credit scene. Did you actually stay for the after credit scene with your head held in your hand?
Not only did I stay, but honestly, when I got to around to what it actually was, I was like, oh my God, did I really sit here for 5 minutes for that? I thought at least it would have been like a shot of King Kong, like, so it would be like, oh, the next one's King Kong and Godzilla. No, it was just the frozen head, and I'm like, who cares? I sat here for that.
Yeah,
I didn't even
apologize.
understand
I
what the
couldn't give you a
point of
heads
that
up on
was.
that.
That's it. Well, no, I mean, I had to see it.
Just to show that King Ghidorah will be back. That's all.
Snooze fest. I mean, seriously, that was the big thing.
Well, it was a big thing for me. I was happy that they didn't kill King Ghidorah personally. You know?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I'm not excited for more of these. I mean, you know, the funny thing is too, like, seriously, like, you know, I'm watching this and this, like, my score, like, again, I know I'm watching this. I know I'm going to review it. I know I'm going to score it. And I kind of walked in. It was funny. Like, it was almost like I sort of caught myself. My default factory setting seems to be 7. I feel like I walk into every movie, like, sort of with the needle stuck on 7. And I'm like, okay, take it from here. Either bring it up or pull it down. And, you know, I honestly, for the first, you know, despite a lot of sluggish beginnings and a lot of weird things, the first third or so, I kind of thought like the needle stayed more or less on 7. But then after that, it was like it refused to deliver. I'm watching people. It was almost like I noticed that there was sort of like I felt that the writers were kind of hinting towards Armageddon, the film Armageddon, in terms of the ragtag bunch of guys. Because it was almost like they were trying to get like this sort of ragtag bunch of characters. But a much blander version of it. And again, am I really praising Michael Bay? I can't believe I'm sitting here saying, well, this is, you know, at least there you had fleshed out, full-blown, in living color characters. Caricatures, yes, but characters nonetheless with personalities. And here again, I felt like everything was gray. All the personalities were sort of muted and dumbed down. Like you'd have one person just very sporadically coming out with like a little quip here or there. There'd be like one random army guy who again is just there for plot exposition to say stuff like you mean really this is happening? Yeah, or this. I mean, like just kind of, you know, we need one rando to say things that the smart people aren't going to say to make it abundantly clear what we're seeing. Yes, I get it. But again, so flat and boring. No, like there's no one in this film. I mean, this is kind of going back to like, I mean, this is like the Phantom Menace in terms of who are the characters I'm supposed to like in this. Even 11, poor 11 is wasted. And I remember in the beginning of the film saying to myself, I almost wished they cast someone else in here because I wish they sort of let 11 be 11 until they're finished with, because I feel like I like the mystery of that character who doesn't talk much and yada yada. And here she's kind of like, you know, just talking like a schoolgirl, blah, 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 blah. I mean, she was good. I mean, she was perfectly fine. You know, I'm not criticizing her at all. I felt that she was kind of just sort of wasted and bland, and I couldn't really. I didn't get what her point was. Like, what's the point of having her in this film? I don't know. It's almost like there's moments where she's. I don't know. I'm having trouble explaining that. But it was almost like I felt like they could have written her out altogether and just let the husband and the wife argue it out about why we're doing things and what her motives are and arguing different points. You could have had a specific dialogue. Instead, you just sort of had her tagging along with the mother, and then at one point turning around and saying, "You're a monster," and, you know, making her point, and then she steals the thing. It was like she really didn't have much purpose in this film.
Her only purpose was to give the mother an excuse to turn back from the dark side near the end.
Yeah, kind of, sort of. And by the way, I promise to take a breath and let you kind of breathe a little bit and talk about. I want to hear some strengths about what you enjoyed about this film. But before I do that, yes, honestly, by the time the mother sacrifices herself at the end, I was just like, I mean, if I had a gun, I would have put it in my mouth. I was like, are you kidding me? Like, now we're going to redeem the mother. Another one is going to self-sacrifice. Boring. And I didn't even understand why she's like, oh, I got to do something. You go on ahead. I'll catch up. And then it's like, they're all looking back and they're like, oh, I see what she's doing. And, oh, they cry and stuff. And the mother, I'm like, it's just, ugh. So, and again, oddly, why even bring up and the funny thing is, too, and I hear myself screaming about hippie BS and environment bullshit. And I'm like, and it's not even that I'm like seriously, when she said like pollution, yes, I agree pollution is bad, but when they use that in movies like this as some sort of like, mankind is bad, yada yada yada, look what we do, war and pollution, it's just kind of like yawn. I don't know. I just like you're really gonna try to work that into this monster. I mean, this is a monster movie, but they're trying to inject it with themes to make it sort of bigger than it is. And that was the thing too, like this film took itself way too seriously. Like they were trying to really amp this up and make this like a real serious thing, and it's like, guys, it's just monsters fighting. It's almost like it's like when like Shazam. Shazam was a film that knew, look, we can either do this like dead serious like Batman v Superman, or we can make it light and sort of have fun with it and whatever, and it worked. And here, I kind of feel like this is the Batman v Superman of monster movies. Like they're trying to really amp this up into something that is just over the top serious, takes itself way too seriously. Its head is way up its own rear end, and boy, did I just not enjoy this. I really just could not. Like I said, by the third act, I'm like, please let me see some monsters fighting, and I felt like it just failed on every level. I couldn't tell. It was so gray and dark and dismal. I couldn't see what the hell was going on. Seriously, the Batman v Superman comparison, I think, is very good. And I didn't even have a coffee since this morning.
Wow, this movie, eat your dog or something like that, man. You're just really on fire.
Oh my god! I'm telling you, I was looking forward to it. I was at least reasonably looking forward to it. I'm saying to myself, how can this not be a good time? But they managed to suck the fun out of it as far as I'm concerned.
To be honest, and to give you the slightest bit of credence, the human parts do sometimes make it difficult to have to wait for the big action sequences. I'm just going to kind of, default to something that Bob Chipman said. Movie Bob said that this is a movie that he felt he wasn't qualified to truly criticize because he has too many, what's the word I'm looking for? Bias? Not bias. Maybe bias is the thing. Basically, because he grew up on Godzilla, every time the Godzilla monsters clashed together, he thought was just like the greatest thing since sliced bread. And he demonstrated it in his video by like, here's my reviews of the movie, and it shows him with little Godzilla toys, and he's kind of banging them and clanging them together and stuff like that, and making all the noises. And he's right. He's absolutely right. Part of my problem, and even as I was going into this, and I think I even said it to my son, that part of my problem, Bub, is I'm not really buying the plot, but I love the action. I'm not 100% sure if I'm really qualified to review this in a critical way, because whenever the monsters would appear, my heart just leapt into my chest and I was excited. Everything else just got forgotten in my head because here was the monsters fighting. And are they the best fights that have ever been done in a Godzilla movie before? I don't think so, but I still enjoyed them. I still liked seeing them, and it was nice to have like really clean looking effects. Yeah, okay, fine. They were gray. They were muted. I completely understand and agree with you on that assessment. But I still found them to be thrilling to be able to see. To kind of like get this imagination of what I thought these types of fights could be, to see them on the screen. And that kind of overcompensated for a lot of the bad stuff. It shouldn't. I should really look at this much more critically than I am doing. But the bottom line is even as a critic, I am the sum of all of my experiences. And, is this movie of the year material? No. Am I recommending people see it? If you're a fan of Godzilla, absolutely I'm going to recommend people see this because there's a lot of fun to be had. But it is not a great movie. It just has elements in it that worked for me. And unfortunately, when you have elements that work for you, it doesn't always work for somebody. I was kind of hoping it would work for you, but seeing your kind of, as I was talking about the movie in the beginning, when I said that, I didn't like the human plot, but, it was nice seeing the monsters in action, seeing that little furrow on your face. And God, I wish we had more time to be able to do video reviews, ladies and gentlemen, because the way his eyebrow moved, twitched, was like, oh, this is going to be a good episode. That's what I thought. It's like, I wish you could have seen that, because it was like it's like if Joe would have died of an embolism, that would have been the moment that it hit.
I will say this. I think like if I were to cheat when it comes time to do our and for your consideration, I would say for your consideration, this is one of the rare episodes where Dave and I are going to disagree even reasonably about a movie, because again you enjoyed it for its fun, and I'm just like, oh, it sucks, at least we have a little spirited debate.
I agree. It's always good to have a spirited debate. It's funny, too, because Liam and I were just talking about that. It's like, yeah, you and Joe just agree a lot on everything. It's like, well, we don't always completely agree, and this is definitely one of those cases where, but the funny part is like, while I don't agree with your assessment, I, however, take it from your experiences and your point of view. I understand where you're coming from, and I can't disagree with your opinion. I just had a different experience with it. And honestly, seeing it with Liam is also another, I won't say detriment, but it definitely adds to the bias, because watching him get so excited as everything is playing out, that adds to my experience.
And that's, yes, that is 1,000% true. I agree with that. And I will go back to, I took my niece to go see Captain Marvel. And, I'm looking at it, I'm kind of going, I'm not sure how I feel about it. And she walks out and she goes, best movie ever. So, and that, aww, I agree with you that taints your experience a little bit, because again, if they're having fun, I mean, that's half the point. And again, I'm not really saying that, seriously, I feel like this film is very similar to Batman v Superman. And in the same vein, I will be very curious to see if maybe by the end of the year, when we're kind of doing our recaps, if your feeling about it will be different. Because I feel like we walked out of Batman v Superman kind of going like, yeah, that was great, punching and fighting, and this happened and that happened, and Batman was great. And then like time went on, and you kind of went, oh, well, there wasn't really that much fighting for a movie called Batman v Superman. And this was kind of, and you sort of, I kind of feel like once the initial smoke settles, I'll be curious to see if your opinion changes, and maybe I'll soften up on it after a little time. But honestly, with in terms of experiences, and growing up with Godzilla and the monsters fighting, and it's the nostalgia's there. So yeah, I get that. But again, I also have a recent film that I can point at and say, but this is how they do it right. And honestly, watching this makes me want to watch Shin Godzilla. And I felt like that is, I mean, again, that's not a Godzilla versus anybody, so it's not a total apples to apples comparison. But again, I thought they did that one really well, and I really wish that if we had, I mean, again, there was certainly a level of destruction porn to that. I felt honestly, because they sort of dialed it back a little bit, it made everything seem so much more realistic. When a building fell, it looked like you were watching a building fall. Here, you're just, again, like I said, it's just a giant regurgitation of CGI special effects, and everything is just exploding and falling, and everything is just flying everywhere, and but by the way, there's a lot of that stupid crap where, again, his tail will go flying. Half of the city's in ruins, but the boat or plane or truck or whatever they happen to be in just gets tossed over to the edge of the cliff and precariously, well, we got to get out of here. I'm just like, oh, every cliche just sort of popped up again. It was almost like this is somebody imitating Michael Bay who doesn't really get Michael Bay. So, again, nice. But seriously, like I said, Shin Godzilla, that's what I sort of look at and say, look, that's how you do a modern take on Godzilla. You have the effects now. You have the luxury. It's not a guy in a suit stomping on little cardboard buildings. I mean, you can do whatever you want now. So the talent to make this sort of a thing will shine or not. And again, Shin Godzilla, it shines. They get, to get the sort of marvel of this big giant monster. Here, it's just nothing more than the big CGI schlock, like Batman v Superman or whatever else. And I kept waiting for it to grab me, and it really didn't. So, and listen, like I said, I get it. When you watch it with your son and he's all into it, it's hard not to get the bug. And I'm not telling you that you're wrong by any stretch. And I by the way, I also haven't listened to other reviewers yet, which I'm kind of now excited to do, to see if I could be in the total minority. Other people, they could all be.
You're not in the minority. You're
Is
not in
that
the
right?
minority. Most geeks like it, but aren't quite as elated. Like Movie Bob admits that he's biased, so that's one thing. I have no idea what Stuckman said. I didn't want to watch Stuckman. Stuckman usually is much more introspective. Movie Bob kind of was just a little more visceral. That's why I watched him.
Put it this way. I mean, again, like you said, this movie even if it's imperfect, if it provides fun, if it provides that little spark, then it does its job. Maybe I wonder if that spark grabbed more people. There were a lot. And again, seriously, as much as I'm kind of going on a wild tirade, I mean, there were moments where, well, that looked pretty cool, and the designs of the monsters I thought was good. But again, I felt like at no point could you, like, if you sat down to draw a picture of Mothra based on what you saw, could you even do an accurate representation? When you walked out of Star Wars for the first time, everybody's drawing the Millennium Falcon, and they can pretty much do it exactly how it looks. I feel like I never got a good look at the monsters even. And that's kind of what bugs me. Again, I felt like everything was sort of like in this haze of camouflage. You really didn't get like a good sense of anything. And again, it just didn't work for me. I was begging this movie, please let a gust of wind come through, clear the sky so I can see what I'm supposed to be seeing. And no, it never happened. So
our world is changing. The mass extinction we feared has already begun, and we are the cause. We are the infection.
Well, you might as well put it out of its misery, Joe, because we're at that point.
Who's gonna go first?
You know what? I think I'll go first this time.
Have at it, my friend.
Okay. This movie, in many ways, is a throwback to the really campy years of the Godzilla flicks. If the first Godzilla movie was meant as a serious statement about nuclear proliferation and all that other stuff, then you could somewhat argue that the 2014 Godzilla was meant similarly, as some type of statement. As the series progressed, it just got a little more ridiculous, but it did it in a way that it wasn't embarrassed by it. It's just like, look, we know this is ridiculous, we're just having fun. And this movie kind of wants to be like that, and in some cases succeeds, but as we've demonstrated, because of the nature of trying to, dance the line between campiness, which is what the Godzilla series became, and seriousness, which is what it started off as, you have the tendency of alienating audience members. And I kind of feel like that's what happened here with you. But for whatever reason, right now at least, that didn't happen with me. I gave this movie a 6. I had a blast. I was very excited by the end of it. I felt like that there were more elements about Godzilla that they got right than they got wrong. Perhaps I still had the trauma of the 1998 Matthew Broderick Godzilla in my head, and thinking, wow, an American studio actually did a pretty good job on it was in my head. I don't know. Hard to say. All I know is I walked out, and Liam and I were talking up a storm and what we were thinking and how we were looking forward to Kong versus Godzilla, which, by the way, I can tell you're probably not looking forward to anymore. I'm not gonna. I don't feel I should apologize for it. I feel 6 is an absolutely positively perfect score for this movie. It loses points because of the terrible plotting. And I can't, and I'm not blaming any of the actors. This is one of those rare occasions where you watch something and it's like, well, is that an acting choice or is that a writing choice? You know, what screwed that up? Was it the actor or the writer? I feel like every one of these actors are really trying their damnedest to make this work. And I didn't feel like their performances were hollow in any way, shape, or form. It's just the writing was shit. And I can't give a movie above a 6 for shit writing, regardless of the action.
Yeah, and that's all very fair. And honestly, there's probably not much of what you're saying that I'm disagreeing with. Except for, I mean, you started off by saying that this was a throwback to campy fun, and I kind of feel like that's exactly what this is not, frankly. I feel like...
No, I was saying, what I was trying to say was like, it's almost like it wanted to try to be a mix of the campy years of Godzilla with the seriousness of Godzilla, and that balance didn't mix and it didn't gel with a lot of people. Because you've got your moments of little campiness, like they bring up the twin girls, for example. You've got that one scientist who's always making these quips and stuff like that, who's obviously based on Rick Sanchez from Rick and Morty. I mean, you know, things like that. That was like, you know, the balance of that didn't work. I kind of felt like one of the reasons I'm also detrimenting it is like, okay, do you want to be a campy movie or do you want to be a serious movie? You need to figure out that identity because the fact that you didn't figure it out is what's alienating people like you from this movie. Okay, I didn't care. I looked past that, but you know, the fact that they couldn't decide on whether they wanted to be campy Godzilla or serious Godzilla is a detriment to this movie. That's what I meant by that.
Yeah, and I read you loud and clear. But I still fall back on the idea that I think what they were trying to do serious with little sprinkles of camp, and that's sort of what's bugging me about it is that. For the most part, it just kind of got up its own rear end, like I said, and tried to be ultra serious, and you know, and again with little shades of the little Michael Bay fun, but again, not enough to actually be substantial and actually work. So you know, again, it's like like you're saying, it doesn't know what it wants to be. But honestly, I just felt like. At no point did it hit the right tone. I mean, everyone's motivation was all over the place. Like even the father. Again, we're introduced to the father. He's out photographing wolves, right? Okay, and somehow, like before that, we're supposed to get a sense of he left the family, I guess, because the son was killed and he couldn't handle it, so he left. But they don't. But again, they never explore that. They never talk about it. There's no sense of resolution with that. They introduce things and don't see them through. I mean, this honestly feels like one of those scripts that probably got rewritten and chopped apart, put back together again. So at no point am I really getting a sense of who's who, why. The mother's motivation just goes wildly out to left field, honestly, and. I never understood what I'm supposed to get from her. And the little redemption at the end, like, I could care less. I mean, honestly, I'm saying to myself, your daughter's right there. You're gonna sacrifice yourself for no good reason. Let your daughter be motherless. This is the lesson you learned. This is what you decide to do to rescue the situation. You know, now you're gonna sacrifice yourself for. I could care less at that point. Honestly, the whole thing was really frustrating, and even like I said, if you just gave me like a good scene of some monsters fighting, I was like, but they kind of refused to do it. They refused to sort of lighten it up and let it just sort of be what it is or whatever. And the everything was all over the place with this. It was a muddled, muddy mess. And honestly, I think calling this the Batman v Superman of monster movies is pretty spot on. That is honestly very much how I feel about it. I feel like it was this murky attempt to be deep, and it wasn't. And I'll just say it: if you want to see a good Godzilla, go rent Shin Godzilla. That was great. So that's that. I gave this movie.
You didn't give a number.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm giving this a 3. And honestly, part of me kind of wonders, is that even a little too generous? But I mean the visuals, while they were not what I would have wanted, I think it was what they tried to do, and I thought that it was effective. Not what I wanted, but they did seem to look at least more or less realistic and visually. It wasn't like I was seeing the wires. It wasn't like I was seeing the bad green screen. I mean, the effects all worked, so I will give it that. And again, if this is sort of what you want for your monster movie, that's fine. But again, I almost feel like this is, like I said, there's a difference between a Marvel movie and a DC movie. At least the Batman v Superman era, DC, and I mean, again, there's people who love it, and all right, I'm good. But for me, it just didn't grab me. So I'm giving it a 3.
Fair enough, my man. Fair enough. How about Who Asked You? Actually, this entire show is a Who Asked You, wasn't it?
It really is. But if you want me to pick out a single moment where I literally, sitting in the theater, made a hand gesture of me putting a gun to my head, it was when the mother sacrificed herself. I literally sat in the theater and I literally went, "Oh, come on!" And I literally went like this, it was so annoying. I was like, again, it was like, ugh, just don't even bother at this point with these grand gestures and look how serious it is. No, if you're gonna make a schlock movie, just make everybody run for their lives like a Michael Bay movie, and everybody escapes alive. And again, not. I mean, Michael Bay has his sacrificial lambs as well, but again, it's more effective. Characters, seriously, this whole thing, I'm sitting here praising Michael Bay. Again, he's the king of schlock. He knows how to do schlocky action movies that will affect you in the way that he wants it to. This movie seriously needs to take a lesson from him, because this is what they were aiming for, but without doing it correctly. It's like watching a bad comedy try to rip off another comedy, but the jokes are not good. So yeah, I just felt like by the time she, and I'm making finger quotes, sacrificed herself, blech, I could care less. Goodbye.
Actually, I'm in the same boat, but not just that one scene, just all the characters, frankly. There wasn't really any character that I connected with on any level. The only reason I even connected with Ken Watanabe is because he just had that cool "let them fight" from the first movie. Yeah. That's it. To the point that they even meted it in the movie when the guy mentioned, I love it when he says "let them fight." It's like, yay, good for you. There wasn't a character in this movie that felt fleshed out in any way, shape, or form. The monsters felt more fleshed out. You got their motivations more than any of the humans. Charles Dance comes along as, the big, mustache twirling villain and stuff like that. And that's pretty much all he does. He just comes along, twirls his mustache and then leaves. Comes along, twirls his mustache, leaves. How about a little character depth?
Yeah.
You need to have a little character depth so that when they're smashing stuff, that actually kind of feels like there's something worth fighting for. That's really what I would have liked. A little more depth in the characters.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. And by the way, you're reminding me, that whole stupid stage scene where they bust in, kill everyone, kidnap the mother and the daughter to take the device. Mm-hmm. Why didn't the mother just take the device and sneak out the back door? If she was on their side the whole time, why the big charade? If she was going to come out and say, yes, I'm with them because this is how I feel, there was literally no point of that. She could have
she murdered those people.
She did, and for no reason. And staged this elaborate hoax where she gets kidnapped just so we can have sort of a twist. But at the end, it's like, well, if that was the thing, she could have just taken it and walked out the back door. So another little dumb thing. And by the way, can I tell you this? It's going to sound like the most nitpicky thing you've ever heard. But I swear to you, when the smoke alarm went off and she reached up and touched the thing on the button, I literally said, I should get one of those. And then I slapped myself in the forehead. I went, shit, I just got duped by product placement.
You got served. It's
probably one of the only times, and again, this thing was loaded with it. I mean, the Fenway Park stuff, and then there was big signs for different things all over there. I mean, there was a lot of it. The Dell products, yes, I got it all, but this was literally the one time when I saw it happen. I went, oh, I got to get one of those because I'm constantly cooking and setting off my smoke alarms, and I never know how to turn them off. They never turn off when you hit the button. I keep taking them off the ceiling and like stuffing them under towels to make them stop. So literally, I got duped. I went, oh, I got to get one of those, and then I was like, no, they got me.
Maybe you should give the movie an extra point just because the product placement worked.
It was actually effective, yeah. There are sometimes in movies where I say to myself, the product placement is so bizarre. I think to myself, why would they ever do that? That dumb Terminator 3, there's a sequence when a Mack truck skids out and stops, and you can watch the broad side of the truck with the big logo advertisement for some sort of a weird drug. And it stayed there for like 3 seconds before somebody stood up in front of it and we moved along. And I was like, wow, that is the weirdest product placement I've ever seen. So yeah, I mean, there are some weird product placements, but this I thought for the first time ever I said that was one that actually worked the way it was intended to.
All I have to say to you is this, sir. You want to see weird product placement? The fourth Transformers movie, Bud Light, Mark Wahlberg. I'm just saying. Look it up sometime. Yeah. It is the most bizarre product placement of all time. And so blatant that it hurts. So there's to your hero, Michael Bay.
I'll tell you what, I actually should have saved that one for your consideration. Effective product placement.
well,
I'm not sure.
Thank you, Alexa.
Yeah, you just pissed off Alexa. Good job. Well, I'm going to start with for your consideration. For my consideration, the one thing that stuck out to me more than anything else in this movie wasn't the effects, wasn't the acting, wasn't the writing. Bear McCreary's soundtrack. I thought that his music was a wonderful modernization, yet loving tribute to Akira Ifukube's original Godzilla soundtrack. Every time that the Godzilla music came on, or when Mothra's theme played, or King Ghidorah's theme, these were all from the original compositions by Akira Ifukube. So I love that. I thought that was great. Hell, I even kind of liked his rearrangement of Blue Oyster Cult's Godzilla song during the closing credits. So yeah, Bear McCreary gets for your consideration on this one.
And that's a good one. And I wish, I wish I thought of that first, because that is actually a great one. And I honestly, I'll admit, I didn't notice it until literally I'm sitting through the end credits waiting for the post-credit scene that I noticed, oh yeah, that's the Godzilla theme that they're doing. And I kind of was like, all right, that's pretty cool. I wish I thought of it before you did.
Oops.
Because honestly, I don't got much. I really don't have much. There was, I kind of want to. It's weird. I'm sort of having this weird love-hate relationship with the visuals of this film, because again, I feel like it effectively did what they wanted to do, but it's not what I wanted them to do. So again, like the scenes of the shots of the monsters like on ice and stuff, and there were moments when I thought the visuals worked well, but again, it's like I'm watching sort of a talented person create a work of art that is just not my style. Like, I can recognize the technique, I can recognize the talent that goes into it, but it's just not something I want to hang on my wall. And that's kind of how I'm feeling about the visuals in this film. I feel like, if that's what you wanted to do, you did it effectively. But it's not my cup of tea. And honestly, I don't know. I mean, it's a very odd mixed for your consideration. There were moments when I thought it was all effective looking, but then there was other times I'm like, ugh, I could just, why? And I really wish I could give it to
That is the most passive-aggressive for your consideration ever.
Seriously. Seriously, I really should have ranked this thing lower, because I'm really struggling to find anything that I really enjoyed about it. I can't even honestly give it to the performances, because I think the actors and the actresses were so underserved by the story that, I mean, again, like 11, a great young actress. I love her in Stranger Things. She's terrific. And then I see her in this, and I just feel like she's totally wasted. Like she might as well have just done a B movie. and she would have, she might have been able to express more acting ability than she did here. So no one was really served in that respect. So yeah, it's really very underwhelming, and that's all I got for the year consideration part.
Back in 2018, it was announced that the creators of Shin Godzilla can't even make anything Godzilla related until after Godzilla vs. Kong comes out in 2020. That's the agreement that they have with Legendary Entertainment with the Godzilla movies. However, that contract expires in 2020. So I guess all we can do is hope that Shinji Higuchi can get back to making good Godzilla movies.
Yeah, there's that. And by the way, you also mentioned, Kong versus Godzilla, and you said, I guess you're not excited for that anymore. I am still open to that, by the way, because I did like this Kong Skull Island much better. And again, for a lot of the reasons why I didn't like this one, I thought that one got much better. They got the tone right. They got the balance of kind of realistic versus fun a little more spot on. Again, it didn't take itself too seriously. It allowed itself to enjoy the big visuals. There were a lot of times, and again, I talked about scale. I thought they got the scale right a lot better than this. So I thought that was much more fun and much more visually pleasing, at least from what I want from it. I want to see what I'm supposed to be looking at. So I am interested to see what they do with the next one. If they can sort of merge these styles and come up with something that's a little more, friendly, at least for my taste anyway. I'm open to it. So I'm not anti the next one.
It's not made by the same team who made Kong Skull Island, just so you know.
Then it sucks, and I don't want to see it.
And speaking of sucks, next week, ladies and gentlemen. I really don't want to do this.
Refresh my memory. I honestly, my brain is so fried, I'm not even sure what next week is.
We're back to the movies, man. X-Men Dark Phoenix.
That's right. Okay. I'm watching the trailers before Godzilla for that, and I'm kind of going, oh, yeah. That's another one we got to watch this year. All right, well, here we go.
We've got, ladies and gentlemen, we have a rough couple of weeks. We've got Dark Phoenix. Next week we're supposed to do Brightburn. I hope that turns out good, but who the hell knows? Then we're continuing the X-Men series. And as you know, the X-Men series goes up and then starts really going down. There's a nice little speed bump in Spider-Man Far From Home. Hopefully that's good. And then we're going to get to the real craptastic X-Men Origins Wolverine. We are suffering here, ladies and gentlemen.
We suffer for our art. And incidentally, by the way, I am kind of looking forward to the X-Men because honestly, I think there might be a couple times when you and I have a little bit to, a little back and forth because I might have different opinions on certain things. So,
hey, dude, honestly, I'm always for it. You know that.
Cool.
All right. So until next time, welcome back, sir.
Thank you very much, sir, and I will see you next week.
Thanks for listening to the Reviews Without Remorse podcast with Joe and Dave. Join us here every Thursday for a new episode, and be sure to check out the Reviews Without Remorse channel on YouTube for spoiler-free reviews of new releases. If you enjoyed this podcast, please consider becoming a Patreon. You can find our page on patreon.com/reviewswithoutremorse, one word. As little as $1 a month goes a long way. All clips in this podcast are for commentary and critique and is considered fair use. No copyright infringement is intended.
With the purposeful grimace and the terror waves through the buildings, throwing center